Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Minnesota-based jazz trombonist, composer, and conductor JC Sanford. We had a great talk about his life and music, COVID, and his debut 2021 CD, Imminent Standards Trio Volume 1, with Jeff Bailey and Phil Hay. This cat is deeply rooted in the traditions of jazz and classical music, but is constantly pushing at their boundaries. He is a protégé of the legendary composer and trombonist Bob Brookmeyer, and he's got a great story. Enjoy.
Hey, man, thanks for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being interested.
Sure. So Imminent Standards Trio Volume 1, it's coming out during a weird time on the planet, global pandemic, music starting back up. Talk to me a little bit about this coming out right now. How does it feel?
Well, it's, we made it kind of because of the pandemic in a lot of ways, and so, we're not going to be playing a lot of gigs now yet, but we're starting to play more things, and it's cool to we're going to do a CD release show for this at this place, Imminent Brewing. That's the place that's the record is associated with. So we're going to do it out, that place is very safe, and it's aired out and stuff like that. So it's going to be great to actually do a CD release show, but it's cool to kind of it was hard to be productive for me during the pandemic. I know a lot of people were very productive, but I have a 5-year-old at home, and so, it was hard to get anything done, really. So to be able to kind of, put out a record during that time was pretty amazing. I mean, thanks to the state of Minnesota for funding it,
Well, I guess that's a part of this process, is there have been silver linings. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about, your life as a musician, and anything that will help you on your return to, kind of getting back to playing live gigs and what we were kind of used to?
I'm kind of learning, this has kind of been a gradual thing, but I guess I took a big step at this last time, is just not to be so hard on myself as a musician, just to kind of play, and not trying to make a statement, not trying to do anything monumental in the music that I'm releasing. Just play. I love to play standards. I've always loved to play standards. I write a bunch of other kind of really weird music for my small groups and for large groups, and but this has always been a core of who I am, and I've been around people. I've had teachers and been around people that always play standards in really interesting ways, and it's just fun just to be able to okay, this is who I am right now, what I'm doing right now, and I don't feel like I have to live up to any standard or anything like that. It was a big leap for me to do this because I wasn't in optimal shape, as a trombone player during this, and to just kind of accept that there's going to be, I'm going to sound like that, and I'm not quite in shape, but still just kind of putting this thing out there. It's very honest. And not that other things I do are contrived or anything, but it's just a side of me that I'm happy to kind of share with people and not just this is who it is. This is warts and all.
So talk to me a little bit about the beginnings for you, how you got interested in jazz, how all this started for you.
I guess when I was a kid was when I started to have some interest, because my dad worked at a record store, a chain that doesn't exist anymore called Musicland. And so he would bring all kinds of records home. My dad was kind of musical, and he would bring, all kinds of different music. So, I'm listening to country and Broadway and classical, but, jazz was always a big part of that. And when I decided to join the jazz band in high school, my dad got very excited about this. And so he started to play more jazz for me, and I started to listen to Duke Ellington and Buddy Rich and Don Ellis, and started oh, this is something actually that resonates with me. I was always an actor too as a child. Improvisation kind of resonated with me. Something I wasn't really scared of embarrassing myself, and I wasn't really scared of being up there, exposed. That's how it kind of evolved, and it's kind of a long story about how I worked my way over to becoming to actually focusing on jazz in college at the University of Northern Iowa, but and still to this day, it just feels like something that's it's very natural to me just to kind of go put myself out there, take chances, and kind of not worry about the results too much.
What was the first live jazz show you ever saw that made you think, man, this is something I would love to do?
That's interesting. First live jazz show, probably the first one that was significant that I saw actually was David Sanborn. But it was this band in the late 80s that he had all these serious jazz legends in there. So he had Kenny Kirkland on piano and Charlie Hayden was playing bass. I think maybe Al Foster was on drums and Don Elias was playing percussion. And I'd been in jazz band and I'd kind of been sort of listening and stuff for a while. But I think one of the most amazing things about that show is just how drawn I was to Charlie Hayden. I never thought I would ever be like just so into what the bass player is doing. And just like that idea of somebody like that I kind of had thought of as being in a supporting role, being someone I just couldn't take my attention away from kind of the entire show. It kind of blew my mind. I wasn't really sure at that time probably that I wanted to be a jazz musician, because at that time I was still wanting to be a singer, like kind of like a pop singer. I was very into Billy Joel. At that time, that really resonated with me, and that came back again later, much later, when I saw Joe Henderson Trio. I was already in school studying jazz, and it was Joe Henderson, actually Al Foster again, and Dave Holland again, and I just kept being so drawn to what Dave Holland was doing. Funny, you think I would have turned out to be a bass player based on these stories. I think part of it is because those two players are so melodic. I'm definitely, as a player, I'm really drawn to melody and developing ideas and line, and a lot of that was fostered by studying with Bob Brookmeyer. But I already kind of had that kind of going, I think, in a lot of ways as a passion before even before I was studying with Bob. So I think that's a big thing. I think artists that have displayed this amazing melodic sense, storytelling. Even before I kind of really understood what was going on with what they were doing, I think I was really drawn to those kinds of artists.
So did you always know that it was going to be jazz, that would be your life?
No, I mean, I did really, even in college, my first year of college, I was actually a classical vocal major, but that was mostly just as a means to be able to become like a pop star. That really was my thing, my plan to become the next Billy Joel or somebody like that. I had a lot of problems with my voice, damaging my voice, and so kind of on a whim, I just decided to change it over. I'd played jazz as a hobby, jazz trombone as a hobby, and then I was like, well, maybe I can get more serious about this. So in my sophomore year, I transferred to University of Northern Iowa and kind of got pretty serious about it. And then it was just like, no looking back. It's pretty hard to imagine not doing it. I never thought at that time that I would end up living in New York for 16 years and performing, doing that. Never ever aspired to that at that point. But then again, once I was in New York, I never thought I'd end up back in Minnesota either. So, you never know where life's going to take you. So,
yeah. So you were fascinated with the bass. You wanted to get into singing, and you ended up with the trombone. How did that happen?
In a lot of ways, I think it all kind of like it comes together because, first of all, that the trombone register, at this lower register. I like to think that a lot of my playing is very vocally inspired. I've listened to a lot of singers and scatting singers, and I like to think that just kind of translates to my horn pretty well, actually, this kind of vocal approach. So, I was playing trombone since fourth grade, but never super serious about it. I had enough natural talent. I was sort of able to get by on it, but I didn't know, I didn't really aspire to do it as a career. And even so, even when I got more serious about it, I'm not like one of these super impressive technical wizards like so many people I know that I love and am so impressed by, So I've kind of had to find my own way to kind of have my own voice, despite kind of not having that, those, I don't want to say pyrotechnics necessarily, but can't show off and can't use all these kind of different sort of more impressive techniques that some other players do. So I kind of rely on that sort of vocal approach to things, much like someone like Chet Baker or someone like that. He's one of my big heroes in that world. Lee Konitz, those kind of guys that have a really song approach to the improvising.
What do you like the best about waking up every day being a musician? What's the best part of it?
Wow. That's a deep question. I feel like I mean, possibility. You know, it's like I like playing standards because it's always a surprise for me, whatever happens. You know, I'm always fascinated to see where I go with, you know, I'll play my first idea and then like, how am I going to respond to that? How am I going to respond to that? And so that every day, that's a thing, you know, I think that's a big part of my life. And especially when I was in New York, I mean, you have to get up every day and you're just like, okay, how am I going to get through this day? You know, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. But mostly you don't plan out. You just go deal. You just go deal with whatever gets thrown at you. So in that sense, you know, I'm just improvising my way through life. And I like that possibility. I like not knowing, you know, what's going to come next. You know, I'm just as much a part of the story and from a different perspective, but as a listener, you know, I haven't figured out, you know, what vocabulary I'm going to use, or I don't have any sort of game plan going into improvising. And so it's just a very open feeling that I just really embrace.
When we do return to live music and everybody gets back to it, you're on stage, we're in the audience. What do you hope we realize about the power of live music since we've been away from it for so long?
You know, I've been able to play some outdoor things, you know, even last summer. And even though I wasn't in shape or anything like that, it was just having people there. It's such a different experience, you know. It's just that kind of connection. And I think, you know, I think that connection is going to be stronger now because at least for me, go as an audience member, going to concerts, you know, I don't intend to, you know, I tend to be distracted, you know, and I'm not 100% tuned in the past sometimes to the shows that I'm going to. And I don't want to waste that opportunity now. You know, I think I'll be, as an audience member, just much more engaged. And I think that's generally true. And people are going to embrace, you know, having the opportunity to go see live music now in a way that they're like, you know, you took it for granted before. You can go at any time. So I think there's going to be I would like to think there's going to be even a deeper connection between artists and audiences, and hopefully, you know, more support just in general, more people buying music of the artists, you know, hopefully, you know, directly through them or through Bandcamp, you know, places that the artists actually, you know, get a significant amount of the funds for. But, you know, I can't wait to do this CD release show that we're going to do. You know, people that used to come hear me play every month and now basically haven't heard me play for a year and a half. That's going to be amazing, and be able to talk to them in between about things, and I can't wait.
So if you could get into a time machine, go back in time and see any musician anywhere, who are you going to see?
Oh, well, it's hard not to have Miles Davis at the top of my list there, I guess. He died right when I started to get serious about jazz, even though I'm sure if I would have seen him around that time. Well, actually, I was already listening to his most recent stuff then. But you know, when I meet somebody who's just a little bit older than me, it's like, yeah, I saw Miles here, and I'm like, oh man, you know, he's just so important to what we're all doing. You know, I've tried to see, you know, as many legendary people as I could. You know, got to see Joe Henderson, got to see Sonny Rollins, but you know, got to see J.J. Johnson several times, who was my hero. But Miles is, yeah, Miles. I think I can't think of anybody better than seeing Miles in person.
Yeah, I agree. So everyone has an idea or a perception of who they think you are: your family, your friends, your fans, your students. But you ultimately live your life. Who do you think you are?
Mostly, I'm just being somebody who's just trying to do things that are good for the world on some level, you know, and if that's part of that, you know, I try to be a relatively responsible environmentalist. You know, I'm vegan and all these things, but if I can bring some good to the world by making people happy with the music that I'm doing, I can't really ask for much more from life, you know, to be able to do that. It's always been the thing for me is, you know, it's nice to make money on a gig or make money from records or whatever, but for me, it's always like, if there's an audience there who's engaged, that's the best thing in the world for me, is to be able to share what I'm doing with an audience. I mean, I think that's it. I think that's what I aspire to do, is just connect with an audience as much as I can.
Beautiful. JC, thank you for taking some time out to talk about the music and the future and everything in between. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Minnesota, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to JC for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.